Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk About It Media 21. Good morning. Good morning. Come on in. Like the video as you guys come in. Like the video as you guys come in. We're just going to get into a few hot topics, trending topics. Come on in. Like the video. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting the channel. I appreciate you all. Come on in. Come on in. Subscribe to the page. We're definitely trying to hit 50K by next month. But I appreciate everyone for being here. Come on in, come on in, come on in. Like the videos you guys come in. I appreciate it. Let's talk about it, Media 21. Let's see. Like the videos you guys come in. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Come on in, come on in. Like the videos you guys come in. Thanks for being here. Just give me a few seconds as I do my disclaimer. All comments are alleged, period. All comments are alleged. Like the videos you guys come in. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships and research. Fair use is use permitted by a copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. Thanks for being here, everyone. Come on in, like the video. We're going to get straight into the video as you guys come in. Like the video as you guys come in. And thanks for being here.
It's only temporary right now, but the decision was basically made that ICE officers can stop people for the crime of being Hispanic, despite the fact in 1975 the court ruled that if you were a Mexican, police officers couldn't stop you for just suspecting that you were Mexican. So yeah, this is crossing a line, and it is only temporary. But you do wonder why in America you would have 6 Supreme Court justices saying it's okay to stop somebody and search them.
Right.
And that's not a violation of the United States Constitution or the constitutional rights because they speak Hispanic or because they may have a certain job. So that's where we are.
Like the video, like the video. Fair use, reaction clip. Like the videos you guys come in.
Hispanic or because they may have a certain job. So that's where we are.
This is where we stand right now. Let's dig into it. The Supreme Court blocked a lower court ruling that restricted the ability of federal officers to conduct immigration stops in Los Angeles. The High Court's decision puts a hold on a July ruling that said immigration agents could not stop people purely because of their race or ethnicity, because they speak Spanish, or because of their work or the places they congregate. The ruling drew a harsh rebuke from Justice Sonia Sotomayor, the first Hispanic to serve on the court, who wrote in part, "We should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job, rather than stand idly by while our constitutional freedoms are lost. I dissent." She was joined in dissent by the court's 2 other liberal justices. Speaking to NBC's Vaughn Hilliard at the White House, border czar Tom Homan praised the decision and defended ICE actions.
Is racial profiling justified?
Which racial profiling?
Are you encouraging your agents to racially profile individuals in this country as part of their immigration enforcement efforts?
We're not racial profiling.
You're not using race. You're not using race to justify.
I just said we have to establish reasonable suspicion. That's a legal crime.
So can you clarify what that looks like?
There's a myriad of factors. I trust the professionals of the Border Patrol, all very well trained, to make sure they establish reasonable suspicion to briefly detain and question somebody, and the Supreme Court agreed.
You know, Willie, in her dissent, Justice Sotomayor talked about the indignity of Hispanics having to carry around documentation just to prove that they're Americans or just to prove that they're in this country legally. Think about that for a second. Hispanics now have good reason to have to carry around documentation so they won't be stopped by ICE. And who knows what happens after that? Think about all the horror stories. And as for Brett Kavanaugh, I'm not exactly sure if cable got disconnected in his office over the past 6-9 months. But this is what Justice Kavanaugh said, justifying the stopping of somebody just because they look Hispanic or just because they may speak with an accent. Kavanaugh writes, as for stops of those individuals who are legally in the country, the questioning in those circumstances is typically brief, and those individuals may promptly go free after making clear to the immigration officers that they are U.S. citizens or otherwise legally in the United States. A justice for the Supreme Court saying the burden is on the person for being guilty of being a Hispanic, basically, in the eyes of ICE. And so because they are Hispanic, because they may speak with an accent, they can be stopped now in the United States of America by law enforcement officers and then have to justify it. And I also, let's focus on what Kavanaugh said. He said the stops are typically brief, no problem at all. How many horror stories have we heard of U.S. citizens, of people with green cards, of people here legally being thrown into ICE detention centers, being arrested, being harassed? I mean, can you imagine, could any of us imagine going to work, being late to a kid's baseball game, being late going to church, like, trying to get to an appointment on time, trying to pick up kids from childcare, trying to get a grandmother out of a doctor's appointment in time, and being stopped for 20, 30 minutes, an hour and a half because you're Hispanic? That's what this Supreme Court ruled yesterday. Temporarily or not, it's surprising, to say the least, that's an understatement, that 6 justices of the United States Supreme Court would say this sort of racial profiling was protected by the Constitution of the United States, because it's not.
And it blocked that U.S. District Court ruling that was clearly saying, we do not want to live in a country where you can stop people based on their race, their ethnicity, the language they're speaking, or the kind of work they're doing. For example, if you're a day laborer, we're going to stop you and just make sure that we check your papers. This is a dangerous road to go down. Let's bring in NBC News senior Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley, former U.S. attorney, and MSNBC contributor Barbara McQuade, and New York Times opinion columnist David French. Good morning to you all. Julia, I'll start with you here at the table with us. What has been the reaction in Los Angeles, in Southern California, and frankly, places across the country where people, Latina women are going to work, as Joe said, taking their kids to school, now stop and think, which way do I go? Are there ICE agents around?
Well, there's certainly people in Boston and Chicago who are worried about this ruling, because we know those are 2 cities that are going to be targeted next by ICE enforcement. And I have to say, Willie, even though this ruling came down from the district in July, since then there were incidents that seemed to violate it. If you think about that Operation Trojan Horse, where the Border Patrol agents jumped out of a Penske rental truck in a Home Depot parking lot in Los Angeles, that seemed like a random profiling sweep, yet that came after this order. In D.C., I talked to parents who were worried to take their kids to school because 2 or 3 parents in their neighborhood had been arrested just that week, and they were really worried about being stopped for no other reason other than being Hispanic. And so there was already this fear, and now the Supreme Court has said they can go back to those policies. It also, frankly, we have some original reporting now that shows that this is part of a practice where they no longer have to do their homework. They used to have to fill out this form. This has been in place since at least 2007, where they would say the name, the address, the person they were going after, more information. Do they have a criminal history? Are there children in the home? Now they've scrapped that. Under this administration, they no longer need to fill out those forms. They thought it was getting in the way. They thought it was bringing down their arrest numbers. And so what this means now is that they're able to go out to places where they don't know anything about the person that they're stopping. They used to have to get approval from a supervisor. And yes, maybe in the course of an operation, they might encounter someone who is undocumented, but now they can begin an operation without knowing anything about their target. And I think that's really telling about what we've already seen, and especially about these efforts that are about to ramp up.
Leaving it to the discretion of an ICE agent, of someone who looks illegal to them and who they can stop and then question. So Barbara, Joe just read from the decision here, Justice Sotomayor saying this in the dissent: we should not live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job. Were you surprised by this ruling from the Supreme Court?
Yes, very much so, because it flies in the face of Supreme Court precedent. Since 1975, racial profiling has been illegal in this country. There's a case there that is a landmark case that is taught in criminal procedure classes, including mine, called United States versus Brignone-Ponce. And in that case, Border Patrol agents who were conducting roving patrols in Southern California were said to be in violation of the law when they were stopping people based on appearance alone. And so since that time, there's been a ban on racial profiling in immigration enforcement. Now this decision says that they can do it based on appearance alone. That is a shocking change in the way we have always understood the law. The other thing that's troubling about this decision is they don't explain why. How is it that they are making this decision that flies in the face of prior precedent? We don't know, because this is another case on the shadow docket.
Yeah, you know, David French, I always have joked that I've spent my adult life being a political psychiatrist, telling everybody that everything's going to be okay. The subset of that over the past 6 months has been saying, you know, the Supreme Court decision that you just heard about, the headline overstates the case. The lead really overstates the case. Go down 3 or 4 paragraphs and you really figure out what's going on here. It's not as bad as it seems in many cases. In this case, I'm going to leave it to you to be my Supreme Court psychologist and tell me why I shouldn't be deeply disturbed by the fact that even temporarily, 6 justices of the United States Supreme Court said it's all right to stop a Hispanic person who may not have a job at a hedge fund and may have an accent because they and their family pursued the American dream and came to this country legally.
Well, I think the court isn't exactly saying that. Essentially what the court...
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Like the video as you guys come in. Like the video as you guys come in. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting the channel. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
So think of it as like a TV ad with a catalog.
Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Use these troops this is Democracy Watch. Mark, there is one case that I've had my eye on above every other case, and that is Newsom versus Trump. It is Newsom challenging Trump's ability to deploy these federal troops into California. It's important because it'll not only have implications as Trump tries to deploy these troops into Chicago and New Orleans, but you and I have spoken at length about the extent to which Trump is going to try and use these troops to possibly interfere or meddle in the election if he's got these boots on the ground. That was blocked in a California district court, a federal district court by Judge Breyer. So Donald Trump lost that case, which was objectively great news. Now, an appeals court has just stepped in and temporarily lifted the limits to Trump's ability to be able to deploy these troops. So is this a step in the wrong direction? Does this mean that the appeals court suddenly is defying what the lower court said and that Trump does have the ability to deploy these troops?
No, so I don't want people to overreact to this and to panic. So oftentimes when there is a big decision that will change the status quo in a significant way. In this instance, it would change the status quo in the removal of National Guard or federal troops from the streets of LA. That judges will stay their decisions until the higher court has an opportunity to review it. Now, in this case, in fact, Judge Breyer did the responsible thing and actually put in place his own stay. So even though he ruled in favor of Gavin Newsom, and by the way, I agree with you, this is a critically important case, and so kudos to the governor for bringing this case. But Judge Breyer already said that he was putting on hold his decision till September 12th. And the reason why is that you don't want this yo-yo situation in which, the troops are there, the troops have to go, the troops can come back, the troops have to go, right? So what Judge Breyer said was, look, I'm going to give the government, the Department of Justice, a few days, more than a week, to decide if we want to appeal and let the Court of Appeals have some time to sort of understand what the case is about and decide what they want to do. And what happened now is that the Court of Appeals, maybe frankly as an administrative matter without even noticing the existing stay is in place until the 12th, just put its own administrative stay. So that's what these are referred to. These are referred to as administrative stays, which means they don't comment on the merits. It's not like it's being blocked because the judges think it's a good idea or bad idea.
Is that a preview of things to come, for example?
It is not a preview of things to come at all. In fact, oftentimes these administrative stays are put in place without the court even considering the papers. Sometimes it's done by the clerk's office, sometimes by a single judge who is just doing housekeeping. And so that's what's been put in place here. I expect early this week we will hear more from the Ninth Circuit about a schedule, about how they will consider this, and that will likely dictate what the timing is. There's an interesting parallel here, though, Brian, to how the Trump administration has handled these things. If you remember, a few weeks ago, the Trump administration sued 14 judges in Maryland, which there are only 14 judges on the federal bench in Maryland. They sued all of them. And you and I did a video, Democracy Docket covered this extensively. And the reason why they sued them was because the judges there had said they were putting in place a 2-day.
No offense.
Like the video,
but if you're paying over $30 a month for car insurance.
Fair use reaction clip. Like the video as you guys come in.
The judges there had said they were putting in place a 2-day, 48-hour, 2-day. administrative stay on any habeas petition that came in from a prisoner or a migrant, rather, who's going to be removed out of the country. They just wanted 2 days to be able to review those papers before the Trump administration could scurry these people to a foreign gulag. And how did the Trump administration respond? They sued the judges, which, by the way, is not a thing, and they lost. But it just goes to show you, Gavin Newsom is an adult. He understands that there needs to be prompt relief, but there also needs to be an orderly basis to this. You didn't see him throw a fit. You didn't see him for all the press conferences, which he badmouthed a bunch of judges. You didn't see him post on social media attacking the judiciary. You didn't see any of that. But that is what we see from Donald Trump and his administration.
I was actually surprised that the Trump administration decided to appeal this, because my thinking was, okay, they've already lost at the trial court. There's no legal precedent if you've lost at the trial court. And we know that Trump wants to preserve his ability to deploy these troops because he likes to feel like an autocrat, like an all-powerful being. And so he wants to deploy these troops to Chicago. He wants to deploy these troops to New York and New Orleans, and any successful attempt at stopping him in another court is, of course, going to offer some legal framework to do so. But if it's an appeals court, then you have legal precedent to be able to stop him from doing so. So does it surprise you that Trump is now deciding to appeal this thing, knowing full well that if the Ninth Circuit agrees with the trial court, agrees with Judge Breyer, then not only will there be a legal framework to push back against this that the other governors can use, but there's actually legal precedent, binding legal precedent that the judges have to consider when making their decisions?
Yeah, look, you and I talked about this at the time, and I said I thought it could go either way, and that this would be a high-risk, high-reward situation, right? Because for all the reasons you just said, I've kind of come to believe that there are 2 people who right now, and it's early, we aren't going to even have 2026, no less 2028, but I think there are 2 people who right now occupy a unique place in Donald Trump's head. One of them is the governor of California, the other is the governor of Illinois. And I think each of them, for slightly different reasons, for some of the same reasons, I think caused Donald Trump to feel insecure and caused Donald Trump to feel like he can't let anything go. In other words, he feels like he has to take this on.
Right.
And so, I'm not saying that they would have necessarily acted differently if this was a different state, but it's not impossible, because all the reasons you just said counseled in favor of the Department of Justice letting this one go. Number one, it could create legal precedent elsewhere. Number two, they're about to deploy, if Tom Homan, is to be believed, they're about to deploy National Guard and troops all around the country. I mean, he said on the Sunday talk shows that they were planning on deploying them in every sanctuary city. Now, I don't know how he defines that term, but it sounds like a whole lot of Democratic cities are about to be in the same position. So they've raised the stakes at a time where, frankly, that's probably not helpful to their argument in the Ninth Circuit. The Ninth Circuit now sees that this is now like a bigger thing. It might actually weaken their case. But the other thing is the Ninth Circuit is not the friendliest terrain, right? I mean, you might think that he would take a shot out of, for example, like Illinois, which goes up to a different circuit, which is actually much more conservative at the Court of Appeals level than the Ninth Circuit. Now, the Ninth Circuit's not the most liberal circuit. It used to be, but it's not anymore. But it's not the Fifth Circuit, where Texas is. It's not the Sixth Circuit or Seventh Circuit or Eighth Circuit, right? Which have really become much more sort of uniformly conservative. So, this was a strategic decision on their part. And as often as not, what I have come to observe is that the Trump White House doesn't make these decisions because they're like playing chess. It's because they're playing checkers. And Donald Trump's upset that, someone just, took his pieces off the board. And that, in this instance, might very well just be Gavin Newsom's, Twitter account.
Well, look, first of all, as a quick aside, you have been absolutely clear-eyed in covering this stuff and also signaling the dangers of what may come in the future, especially as we get closer and closer to the election, and what these troops being deployed into the cities might mean if Trump tries to wield them as a cudgel against Democrats, specifically in Democratic strongholds like Milwaukee and Detroit and Philadelphia and Atlanta. So this is exactly the kind of messaging that I think folks need to pay attention to. One way to do that, the best way to support Mark's work, and a small step that we can all take, is to subscribe to his news outlet, Democracy Docket. He founded it to focus on everything voting in elections, so I'm going to put that link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video if you were looking to support.
Like the video, fair use, reaction clip.
Smacked me and disfigured me permanently.
Like the video as you guys come in.
Also in the post description of this video, if you were looking to support any independent media, I could not recommend Democracy Docket higher. Mark, it's worth asking here, how binding would this precedent be if indeed the Ninth Circuit agrees with Judge Breyer in the trial court?
Let's continue. Fair use, reaction clip. Like the videos you guys come in. Like the videos you guys come in. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting the channel.
Democrats are reviewing hundreds of documents handed over to the committee, and they have just released that body drawing allegedly drawn by President Trump for Epstein's 50th birthday. Here it is.
Allegedly. Let's continue.
The Wall Street Journal was first to report on it a few months ago, and today we're getting a first look at it. Joining us now, staff writer for The Atlantic and MSNBC political contributor Mark Leibovich, the Bulwark senior reporter Will Sommer, host of the Bulwark podcast, and an MSNBC political analyst, Tim Miller. Mark, I know you are thrilled and honored to be on the show today to get a first glimpse of this.
You know, it's happening in real time. First of all, I'm always thrilled and honored to be on the show, Katie. We've had the wording on this before. We've sort of had a general sort of contours of what this is before. This is actually sort of the physical. This is actually it. We are seeing this. It's unclear whether the needle will move any more than it already has. But obviously, look, I mean, Donald Trump has said that this doesn't exist. This, what I can tell, looks like it exists. So start with that. We'll see, you know, if this propels the story any faster, any greater time than it will. Although I suspect that there will be other things that we didn't know before that are going to be coming out in the probably next few days.
Will, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the letter that has all the stuff about, you know, secrets and ages not changing, things like that. I mean, so I think it's great to see it. The sort of instant reaction I'm seeing from right-wing media, they're really focusing a lot on the signature, saying, oh, you know, Charlie Kirk, for example, is saying, that doesn't really look like Trump's signature. It looks just like Trump's signature. I mean, if you pull up what Trump's signature looks like, it looks pretty much exactly like that. So, you know, I think this is going to keep the story going, the Epstein story that Trump has obviously tried to avoid. You know, that and Mike Johnson claiming and now backing off the idea that Trump was some sort of FBI informant against Epstein. I think the story is sort of turning against the administration once again.
Yeah, I mean, I am pulling up Donald Trump's signature right now, and gosh, the D is exactly the same. I mean, I don't know. Listen, I'm not a handwriting expert, but this was in the birthday book.
They would have handwriting experts to look at it. We can't confirm or deny if that's the signature.
Wall Street Journal reports that he submitted it. Donald Trump denies it. It's just a weird thing, Tim, it's a weird hill to die on. I did not write that letter. I did not draw that picture. We all know they were friends. It's been documented that they were friends. Why are they so concerned about admitting that Donald Trump sent him an image like this? It's not like no one knows that Donald Trump himself is body.
Yeah, well, I think it's their instinct to lie, for starters. Was when they're presented with inconvenient information, it's easier for them to talk about the fake news and sit and blame the fake news than actually engage on the merits. On this one in particular, yeah, I mean, it is true that it's not known that Donald Trump was bawdy, but there is this mythos that Will could talk about for sure on some of the MAGA right and the QAnon right, that Trump was like fighting against, you know, the elite pedophile rings out there, and that he was, you know, some warrior on the inside who was going to expose all these people. And now here he is, not only not exposing them all, but writing this note to Epstein here that is extremely familiar, right? Like it's one thing, it is true that famous people sometimes sign birthday cards for people or sign generic notes for people. That is not what we're seeing here. I mean, we have this drawing of what appears to be a young woman, I would say, and Donald Trump talking about how they share certain things in common, about how they have all these wonderful secrets together. I mean, it's a letter from two guys that get in trouble together and have a bromance. That's what this is. It's not some generic letter, and so I think that's why they probably are more sensitive about it, because it's not as if it's just two famous people getting their picture together at another famous person's party. It's more intimate.
I hear you on that, but I don't think would it be surprising that Donald Trump wrote something like this to one of his friends? No, even if that friend did turn out to be a creep, I'm not sure it would be surprising. I don't know if that inherently means that Donald Trump himself is also engaging in the same behavior. He was interacting with lots of people. I think making that jump is easier to do if the person is being cagey about it and strange and not admitting to some obvious things. When you're not saying, yeah, I wrote this, I did do this picture. No, it's not me. Somebody else drew it. It's not my signature. When it looks exactly like your signature, that starts to raise more questions. But I want to linger on what Tim said a moment ago about the right canonizing Donald Trump as the figure who was going to expose all of this. Speaker Mike Johnson had this very weird moment on Friday where he suggested that Donald Trump was actually an FBI informant against Jeffrey Epstein. He was the one that tipped off the FBI back in the early 2000s. He walked that back and cleaned it up a bit in a statement today, but it just was out there for 3 or 4 days out there in the press. Where does that come from, this idea that Donald Trump was the one? By the way, we had Tom Winter on earlier today. He's reviewed the documents, and the initial tip came from, according to the government documents, came from the family members of some of the girls who were victimized.
Every month, this Airbnb pays me about...
Like the video, fair use, reaction clip. Let's continue.
I'm sending that to you. I'm sorry, Will.
Oh, sure.
It was a big wind-up.
Sure. So in this case, I mean, look, conspiracy theorists, QAnon believers, Trump supporters have had a problem for a long time, which is how do you square Donald Trump's friendship with this, convicted charged sex trafficker and pedophile, all these things, convicted pedophile. And what they came up with was, well, maybe Trump was kind of going in on the inside to expose Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe he made Alex Acosta, the prosecutor who gave Epstein a sweetheart deal. Maybe he put him in the cabinet to draw attention to how awful this deal was. So they kind of exist in this alternate universe, and that's only gotten worse since Trump tried to close the Epstein case along with Pam Bondi. And so, again, it's bizarre to me that this has reached the point where the Speaker of the House is now saying, well, maybe Trump is an FBI informant. Maybe he was working to take down Epstein. But really, I mean, they're grasping at straws because, as you said, Katie, the whole thing is really weird. The idea that Trump was friends with this notorious pedophile, and all of a sudden his administration is doing everything they can to stop this discussion about it.
Yeah, I guess if you're innocent, why do you protest so much about it? Why do you claim that you're not involved in any way? Why is this not your signature? We've seen the images. We've seen them partying together. Donald Trump has given quotes to magazines about the kind of guy that Jeffrey Epstein was. It's all been out there, Mark.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the protest too much thing is a close cousin to what Tim just said about, the line comes easily, right? I mean, they're trying to convolute this. Is convolute a verb? I don't know. It is convoluted. This makes it more convoluted when you mix the FBI informant thing, which I just learned about yesterday. I guess we all just learned about it yesterday, with whatever quibbling and protesting there is about the signature, whether this is real or not. I mean, look, this is what everything we're seeing in this new document, in this letter, what we've heard about it, does not strike me, and I don't think it'll strike a lot of his supporters as out of character for Donald Trump. I mean, this is very much in line with the person that people who both love and hate him over the years have come to know. The FBI pieces, I mean, that kind of came out of left field here. But ultimately, I mean, this is part of, I think the more details, the more tortured you get into what's true, what's not true, what might be true, the conspiracy theories, the more the issue itself might sort of recede and become just a little bit too convoluted for the base to talk about, which is what's dangerous to Donald Trump, because the base sort of rebelled against him over Epstein, and we'll see where this leads from it.
I want to get you, though, Mark, on your piece today, which was, I thought, the most interesting way to talk about this, at least for the moment, which is not maybe the most interesting, but one of the interesting ways to talk about this. The Democrats, I always think you're the most interesting. The Democrats are really latching on to Epstein, and they're trying to say that anything that Donald Trump does is a distraction from Epstein. He doesn't want to talk about Epstein. He's worried about Epstein. So any move he makes, sending troops to Chicago, signing executive orders to change the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War, all of it is a distraction. Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
I mean, I think it's overdone. I think it goes to the Democrats' lack of imagination. I think it sort of goes to a laziness where they, instead of making a coherent case against what Donald Trump is doing, and God knows he's giving them a lot of material to work with around authoritarianism and what he's doing in cities and ICE and so forth, and just saying, oh, he's just trying to distract from Epstein is very, very reductive. Really does no justice at all to the issues involved. And yes, the Epstein story is extremely problematic to Trump potentially and to Republicans on down. But I also think, enough already. They actually have to work harder to make a case that is actually going to drive, the kind of support and bring them out of the wilderness that they have not been in for a while.
Do you see any Democrats finding a way to present an alternate idea to the American public, an alternate narrative to the American public, Mark?
I think there are some. The Democrats writ large are, they're in a heap of trouble around fundraising, around what's going on at the DNC, around sort of lack of confidence in their leadership, what polls are saying. But ultimately, what these sort of wilderness, phases have in common is they end when you actually recruit candidates. And Democrats, I think the good news for them coming out of all this is that they're recruiting good candidates. They have a strong midterm, and it does look like the ruling party right now, and Donald Trump certainly might be overreaching, and they're certainly not popular either. So I do think around the economy and inflation and around things that I think Donald Trump truly is vulnerable on, they're starting to arrive at some kind of coherent message.
All right, just to go back to this drawing and the signature, which people online are saying is not his. Screen right is an executive order. Screen left is the signature on the birthday book. So yeah, you decide whether you think that looks similar or not. Tim, what do you think?
It looks similar to me, Katie. But just circling back about how they don't really care about the brazenness of their lies, it's worth maybe remembering that the vice president, when this story first came out, when the Wall Street Journal first ran it, tweeted this: "Forgive my language, but this story is complete and utter BS." He writes it out. The Wall Street Journal should be ashamed for publishing it. Where is this letter? So, at that time, they had to know that this really existed, that it was true, but they don't care about that. They try to live one news cycle to news cycle, and they're happy to advance lies if it suits them in the moment, and I think that they will grasp for anything that will suit them now. But I think it's pretty clear what was happening here.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Like the videos, you guys come in. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting the channel. Like the video as you guys come in.
Hey, back to school already.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Don't forget to hit the subscribe, you guys, too.
ICE operations, and Mike Tobin has the latest from Chicago. Hi, Mike.
And Dana, ICE agents are operating in the city of Chicago right now as we speak. They picked up some people yesterday in the northwest suburb called Palatine. But despite what you're hearing from Illinois Democrats, you're not going to have columns of ICE agents walking down the street randomly snatching people off the street. The way these operations work is they have individuals that they have information on, that they have criminal histories, they're in the country illegally, but despite sanctuary policies and cashless bail, they are out on the street. So you have those are the individuals they're going to be going after, the individuals they're going after right now. Now, the Illinois National Guard has not yet received any orders to even begin preparations for deployment. If and when the Guard is sent to the streets of Chicago, they won't necessarily be the tip of the spear. They'll be adding to the manpower, doing things like traffic, helping out with logistics. Here's what Secretary Holman had to say about that.
The National Guard are always on the table. We use them in Los Angeles, and we use them in Washington, D.C. They're a force multiplier. Now, do they arrest illegal aliens? No. ICE officers, Border Patrol agents who have Title 8 authority arrest illegal criminal aliens. But the National Guard does provide protection for us.
Now, we did see protests over the weekend to the tunes of hundreds who came out. They were a coalition of a number of different groups, so really they were protesting everything under the sun, focusing on the Trump agenda. It fits the definition of a peaceful protest. They did their thing, they marched, and then they went home. In a western suburb called Broadview, there was a dust-up with federal agents. A federal agent appears to shove a woman to the ground and shove her male counterpart. Witnesses at the scene say the protesters had become aggressive and threatening at that point. As far as the criminal activity in Chicago, we don't have the weekend totals officially out of Chicago police so far, but it looks like 6 people were killed over the weekend, another 12 shot. Dana?
All right, Mike Tobin in Chicago for us. Thank you.
Will Kane joins us now, host of the Will Kane Show, 4 Eastern. Will, nice to see you. Good morning to you. Good morning. A moment ago on Truth Social, here's the president talking about crime. Washington, D.C. is a safe zone in just a matter of weeks. All caps there. Thank you, President Trump. And then he asked the question, who's next? He was also asked this question about going to war en route to the U.S. Open here in New York at Andrews Air Force Base. Watch here.
You don't work this fake news, but you say that, darling. That's fake news. Why defend? Listen, be quiet. Listen. You don't listen. You never listen. That's why you're second grade. We're not going to war. We're going to clean up our city. We're going to clean them up so they don't kill 5 people every weekend. That's not war. That's common sense.
Okay, so obviously that was the White House. My bad on that. I don't know what Chicago wants, Will. I don't know what your thought is on that, but maybe they're afraid it actually will work.
Yeah, I think, Bill, sometimes we think of this as a monolith. We say, what does the city of Chicago want? That has to be distinguished from what Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois or Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago want. They want to make this a political battle, a tweet war, a PR war between themselves and Donald Trump so that they can play to their base. And to some extent, Donald Trump helps them out in that battle. The post that he made on Truth Social with the Apocalypse Now meme and say, I love the smell of deportations in the morning, gives them the ammunition that they want, but they take the bait. And then they end up having this fight over the PR of the fight, when the real fight is about what's happening in Chicago on the streets, or the horrible stories the two of you just reported from Charlotte or Washington, D.C. And the people of Chicago, I can only imagine, those who really suffer from the crime in that recidivist area, South Side, West Side, where it happens over and over again, they want safety. That's the war. That's the war. The war is on crime.
And Will, speaking of Democrats being outraged, they had plenty of that to showcase over the weekend. Watch here.
The President of the United States essentially just declared war on a major city in his own nation. This is not normal.
The terrible things that the President of the United States is saying about using troops in the Department of War in the city of Chicago is an embarrassment and disgusting.
I call it threat. I call it embarrassing. I would call it performative.
And Will, just one more on that, because the last person to speak there, that's Governor Wes Moore, Governor of Maryland, and here is Don Lemon on his YouTube channel. He found somebody that he wanted to talk to, might not have gotten the answer he expected. Watch.
The president said he wants to send troops here to Maryland. What do you think? Baltimore into Maryland?
I'm not opposed of it. Right. I think it'll be a good idea.
Why so?
Maybe we can clean up some of these crime-ridden neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Is
the crime bad?
Very bad. Atrocious.
So, Will, it's like President Trump is saying, we have a crime problem, and the Democrats say, no, we just have a perception problem. But the reality on the ground from people who live there, as you were saying, is what it is.
See, this is what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You play the clips of Democrats acting like he's declaring war on an entire city. When the people that suffer from that crime, and by the way, if we're just putting a fine point on it, it is almost always minorities. It is more often than not black victims of black crime in black neighborhoods are asking for help. They've lived under this. They're the victims that have to deal with this. And, you know, Wes Moore or Brandon Scott, the mayor of Baltimore, or Gavin Newsom in California have responded to President Trump by now surging local law enforcement. So President Trump declares war on crime, not cities, on crime, and these mayors want to play the political battle of always being in opposition to Donald Trump while secretly going, maybe we should surge crime, law enforcement to stop this crime in Baltimore or Chicago.
Yeah, well, we're told we'll get a decision on Chicago in a matter of days. We kind of thought that last week, but maybe this time it's for real, as we say. We'll see you at 4 o'clock Eastern, Will. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Will.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy. I'm Brian.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Let me know what you guys think about everything that's going on in the news.
If you're a coach, a consultant, an expert, or someone who...
Like the video as you guys come in. Like the video as you guys come in.
Steve Kornacki, who's going to break down the latest NBC News Decision Test polling. So thank you all for being here. Vaughn, I'm going to start with you. I wonder what you're hearing from the White House, especially when it comes to today's decision with the Supreme Court, because, of course, it lifted this sort of limits on roving immigration patrols. Some people were saying that this is essentially racial profiling, but the Supreme Court essentially siding with the Trump administration.
Right, and we have seen, Yamiche, here, this Trump administration tried to push the bounds of what type of enforcement they are able to execute in these major cities. In Los Angeles, it was really largely not just a test case, but a legal one, in which now here, ultimately, after 6 months of litigation, this decision came down to the Supreme Court, and in the 6-3 decision with the conservatives and the majority, Justice Kavanaugh writing for those 6 justices, that effectively that they are able to use as factors for reasonable suspicion the idea that race can very well be used, or the location of where they allege undocumented individuals to frequently look for jobs, for example, a Home Depot parking lot. And in the immediate aftermath of the Supreme Court here emergency decision, the Department of Homeland Security in the social media posts saying that they will flood the zone in Los Angeles, effectively acknowledging that they have been given the thumbs up to move forward with not only their immigration enforcement, but measures that a great many others, particularly in the Democratic Party, argue amounts to racial discrimination in the efforts to target and identify Latinos who they suspect of being in this country undocumented.
Yeah, and it's certainly a case that we're going to keep watching as the Supreme Court made this ruling, but the actual case is going to continue to go through the courts. But I also want to ask you about President Trump and his decision on where to send federal forces next. Is there any update on where he might actually be sending troops? And are we even certain that this is definitely going to happen this week, even though, of course, Tom Homan, his border czar, said it was going to be Chicago in a few days? Now it's not really clear.
Right, and I think that that's where your question to the president yesterday was prudent, because the president, on one hand, some suggest uses hyperbole in his explanations or his forecasting of his own actions. In this case, this weekend, in a meme, he suggested that the city of Chicago would soon learn what the Department of War is. But then, in response to your questioning, and Tom Homan as well, suggesting that, well, it's going to be taking on the cartels and taking on crime in these cities. But already here, just this afternoon, the Department of Homeland Security announcing what they're calling Operation Patriot 2.0 in the city of Boston. This comes days after the Department of Justice filed the lawsuit against the city of Boston for what they say was interference with federal immigration law enforcement by being a so-called sanctuary city. The president has suggested New Orleans potentially Portland could also be the targets for this administration when it comes to immigration and crime as well.
Yeah, well, definitely something that we're going to watch, where the president decides to send troops next. Thank you so much, Vaughn Hilliard at the White House. And Shek, I want to come to you. What's been the reaction to President Trump's latest threats on the ground there in Chicago?
Well, you've seen very strong reaction, Yamiche, not just, by the way, to the threats, but also some of the action that folks are starting to see here on the ground. There's, of course, that announcement from DHS announcing this Operation Midway Blitz, but they also, in the past hour or so, sent out pictures of some of the individuals who they arrested over the course of the weekend, this being ICE, saying that they were arresting undocumented immigrants who had criminal records. On social media, ICE posting out a picture of one of their new vehicles and you see the Chicago skyline in the backdrop. All of this is being met with real opposition on the ground. We saw it this weekend where thousands went downtown to protest. We saw it today with multiple different demonstrations. I was at one that was put together by some religious leaders across the city pushing back on this intense the increase in immigration enforcement. I want you to listen to what one organizer told me. What's your message to the president?
that we're not going anywhere. Really, that we together, Chicago, we need federal resources. That's my message. Send federal resources, not federal troops. We need the resources that were cut for community violence intervention. We need the resources that are being cut across SNAP benefits, across Medicaid, all of these things.
Yamiche, that is a consistent message that you hear, and it's a response to the justification that you're hearing from the president, pointing to some of the violence that you see in Chicago, saying that more federal resources are needed. We had the governor just in the past couple of minutes here release a new statement to that announcement from DHS, saying once again, this isn't about fighting crime. That requires support and coordination. His office saying that he has not heard from President Trump, from anyone in the administration directly, Yamiche.
Well, Shaq, it's definitely going to be something that we're going to be watching, especially as you said, the Illinois governor is very critical of the president. So thanks so much, Shaq, for that information. So, Steve, it's one of those days where we have to talk to you. Let's start with the president's overall approval numbers in this poll. Do most Americans approve of the job he's doing?
Yeah, well, you showed some of those issues a minute ago, and what that adds up to is a 43% approval rating in our new poll. This is a Decision Desk poll. Again, this is all adults here. This is voters, potential voters, so we're kind of casting a wide net, but a 43% approval rating for Trump. That is pretty much at the level it's been now for a few months, for much of this second term for Donald Trump, and even it's sort of been similar to the level we saw back during his first term. And one of the key ingredients to this, you mentioned too, the economy. That's the issue voters cite more than any other as the most important issue to them right now. And when you ask folks how Trump is doing specifically on inflation and the cost of living, again, we've seen this for a few months now. He's under 40%. He's at 39%. Some of his worst marks from voters coming on the economy and on inflation. And that is a departure from his first term when his best marks tended to come on those subjects.
You talked about people, of course, thinking about inflation and the cost of living. What other important issues are Americans thinking about as most important for them, and how do they think the president is doing?
He gets his best marks on border security and immigration, where he exceeds his approval rating there. We also asked this time about deportation, so not just border security and immigration, but we asked about deportations as well. His numbers fell a little bit, but he's 47% approval on border and immigration. He's 43% approval when you ask about deportations.
If no one
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Like the video as you guys come in.
Deportations.
I also want to ask you about something that the president talks about. In some ways, he was appealing directly, I think a lot of people thought, to young men. So this poll shows that there's a wide gender gap, apparently, among Gen Z Americans. How wide is that gap, and what's fueling it?
Well, it's a major divide that has to do with politics, but I think takes in a lot more. That's the surprising finding in this poll for us. So let me take you through it. Gen Z, we're talking about adults under 30 years old, sort of the new rising generation here. And take a look here, just when it comes to attitudes towards Donald Trump. Again, we told you, with all voters nationally, with all Americans nationally, I should say, he's at 43% job approval. With men under 30, 47%, so a little bit better. But with women under 30, look at this, way under his national level, just 26% approval for Trump right there. So that's one of the things we find. Not only is there a huge difference in Gen Z between men and women when it comes to their attitudes towards Trump and politics, this group right here, Gen Z women, is the most anti-Trump group you're going to find any generation gender combination, most anti-Trump, most politically progressive, and these big differences between men and women, we saw them. Look, again, this is the rising generation, the emerging generation. We thought we'd get a portrait. We asked about some basic questions about what they think about life, about the future, about priorities, and take a look at the difference we found here when you do gender and politics. Again, this is just Gen Z here. Look at this. We gave them a whole bunch of choices here about what do you think defines success in life to you? Asking a basic question. Gen Z men under 30 who voted for Donald Trump, their number one answer was having children. That makes, in their view, more than anything else for a successful life. Gen Z women under 30 who voted for Harris, that same option, having children, dead last. Look at that. First in one group, last in the other. Being married right at the bottom there, too, for Gen Z women who voted for Harris. Being married near the top for men. And how about this for a difference, too? Having emotional stability, one of the most important factors in a successful life, cited by Gen Z women who voted for Harris. Dead last when you're talking about Gen Z men who voted for Trump. These are basic, core priorities, concepts about what makes life a successful one, and they couldn't be more at odds in some of these cases between these two groups. I think that was the most surprising finding in this poll, Yamiche.
Wow, Steve, that is incredible to see Gen Z men saying that having children is number one and Gen Z women saying that that's dead last. A great day to have you at the big board. Thank you so much, Steve.
You got it.
Thanks for tuning in to the channel. I appreciate everyone. I have some business I have to take care of. Like the videos you guys come in. Let me know what you think about the topics, hot topics, trending topics. We were going to get into some other stuff. I just didn't see much that I wanted to talk about this weekend. Of course, Dwight Howard, Hall of Fame. LeBron James was in the audience. Other stuff was being talked about, but I really didn't see much I wanted to go into this morning. I do have some business I have to take care of. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships and research. Fair use is use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged in our opinion and for entertainment purposes only. I hope everyone has a great day. I appreciate you tuning in. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting the channel. Focus on healthy, safe relationships. Be around people that's loving, kind, and respectful. Have a great day, everyone. Goodbye.